The night her mother died, the river was louder than usual. It did not roar like it did in the rainy season, but it spoke in low, restless murmurs, as if something unseen was moving beneath its skin. The old women of the village said later that the river had been calling for blood. They said that was why her mother bled, until her wrapper was soaked dark and heavy, why her cry grew thin like a tired bird before it finally stopped. The girl was only 5 days old. Her father did not survive the week. He walked into the bush one evening and never returned. Some said a snake took him. Others said madness led him deeper and deeper until the forest swallowed him. By the time his body was found days later, stiff and swollen near the river bank, the whispers had already begun. She came with bad wind, one woman said, clicking her tongue. She followed the dead from the spirit world, another replied. And so the child was named with fear in people's mouths, long before she could understand words. They called her cursed. She grew up in the corner of the village compound, belonging to her late mother's younger sister, a woman already heavy with her own children and bitterness. The girl learned early how to make herself small. She learned to sweep quietly at dawn, to fetch water before others arrived so no one would refuse her the calabash, to eat what was left after everyone else had finished. Sometimes that was nothing more than watery soup clinging to the side of a pot. Children were warned not to play with her. "If you follow her, you will fall sick," their mothers said. When goats went missing or yams rotted in storage, eyes turned toward the girl. When rain delayed planting season by 2 weeks, people muttered her name under their breath. Yet she did not grow wicked. She greeted elders with a deep bow. She helped old women carry firewood. She shared the little she had even when her stomach ached with hunger. At night, when everyone slept, she sat outside and listened to the river. It calmed her. Somehow the sound felt like a lullaby she had known before she was born. The year she turned 12, sickness came to the village. It started with fever. Strong men began to sweat and shiver. Children cried through the night, their bodies burning. The herbal mixtures prepared by the elders worked for some but failed for many. 2 children died within a week. Fear thickened the air like smoke. Someone remembered the old story. Long ago, they said, when misfortune refused to leave a land, the river demanded an offering, not of gold or animals, but of what the village feared most. A human child believed to be cursed. The words spread quickly, growing sharper with each telling. "The orphan," someone said at the evening gathering. "The one the river spared before," another added. They remembered how, years ago when she was still a toddler, she had fallen into the river during the rainy season. The current was strong then, fierce enough to tear full-grown men from their feet. Everyone believed she had drowned, but hours later she was found asleep on the riverbank, not a scratch on her body, her tiny hands curled like she had been carried and gently placed there. That day, fear rooted itself deep in the village heart. Now, desperate and grieving, the elders convinced themselves the river had refused to kill her because it wanted her later. No one asked the girl what she wanted. On the morning they came for her, the sky was pale and quiet. She was washing her aunt's pots when she felt the sudden weight of eyes on her back. Men stood at the edge of the compound. Women hovered behind them, faces tight with fear and resolve. The oldest man stepped forward. His voice trembled, but his words were firm. The river must be appeased. She understood immediately. Her hands shook, and the pot slipped, breaking against the ground. No one moved to comfort her. Even her aunt looked away. As they led her through the village path, some people cried. Others watched in silence. A few nodded, believing this act would save them. The girl walked barefoot, dust clinging to her feet. Her heart beat wildly, but she did not scream. She had learned long ago that tears did not soften hearts, hardened by fear. At the riverbank, the water flowed calmly, as if unaware of the drama unfolding. The priest muttered incantations, his voice blending with the sound of moving water. The girl's wrapper was tied tightly around her chest. Her arms were held. She looked at the river. For a brief moment, memories flooded her mind. Nights listening to its song, the strange comfort it always brought. She closed her eyes. Then they pushed her. The water swallowed her body in one cold, shocking breath. She sank quickly, the world above fading into ripples of light. Her chest burned. Panic rose sharp and fierce, and then silence. The river did not rage, it did not crush her. Instead, the current softened, wrapping around her like warm hands. Her body stopped sinking. Light shimmered around her, green and gold, moving like living things. She opened her eyes. She was not drowning. A presence surrounded her, not seen but felt, gentle, ancient. "You are not cursed," the presence seemed to say, not in words but in knowing. "You are kept." The girl felt herself being carried, not upward in panic, but calmly, as though time itself had slowed. When she broke the surface, air rushed into her lungs without pain. The river guided her gently toward the bank downstream, far from the waiting villagers. She crawled out onto wet sand, coughing, trembling, alive. When she finally stood, the river behind her stilled completely, smooth as polished stone. Back in the village, people waited. Minutes passed, then hours. No scream came, no sudden wind, no sign of appeasement. Instead, the sickness worsened that night. Another elder collapsed. Fear turned to confusion. At dawn, a young fisherman ran into the village shouting, "She is alive! The river has returned her!" Panic erupted. Some called it proof of witchcraft. Others felt something crack inside them, something like shame. When the girl walked back into the village, her clothes torn, her eyes brighter and steadier than before, silence fell. She did not look angry. She did not curse them. She only spoke softly. "The river did not take me because I was never meant to die." Her voice carried calm, not pride. She told them what she felt beneath the water. Not visions of destruction, but warmth, protection, and a warning. The sickness, she said, was not because of her. It was because the village had polluted the river upstream, cutting sacred trees, dumping waste without respect. The balance had broken. The elders listened, shaken. That same day, they followed her to the place she pointed out. They found dead fish, darkened water, rot spreading quietly where no one had cared to look. They cleaned the river, they restored the trees, they made offerings of apology, not blood. Slowly the sickness faded. Weeks passed. No one died again. The girl was no longer chased from fires. Children began to sit beside her. Old women called her name gently. Her aunt wept one evening, holding her for the first time since her parents died. Seasons changed. The girl grew. She learned herbs. She learned listening. She learned how to teach without bitterness. When people came to her with pain, she did not remind them of the day they pushed her into the river. She only helped. Years later, during a festival, the village gathered by the same river. Drums beat. Laughter filled the air. The water flowed clear and bright. The girl, now a young woman, stood smiling among her people, no longer cursed, but cherished. And as the sun set, the river whispered softly, not of death, but of life kept, love returned, and a child who was never meant to be lost.